Hey, y'all. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining. We are focusing on why support isn't always support. That might seem a little interesting, a little like, what do you mean support isn't always support? We're talking about why systems matter, right? So, some of the support that often y'all we're most proud of is the very thing that can keep students dependent. I'm gonna say that again. Some of the support where we're like, oh yes, that I'm doing this, I'm checking the boxes. Some of those very things that we're most proud of can keep students dependent. And then we'll complain about the dependency later, right? About the dependency or the students themselves being dependent. But the reality is we're missing some of the warning signs. So if you are repeating yourself every night, that's not a system. If you have to say the instructions, directions over and over, right, that is a warning sign. Y'all, that's not a system. Recently, I saw a reel that Kier Gaines, this guy, he posted a conversation about something called dishonest harmony. So dishonest harmony in parenting, because he talks a lot about just parenting and kind of therapy kind of things. But the idea in dishonest harmony is that let's just keep going. Everything's fine. Nothing needs to be addressed. And he says something that was pretty powerful and has continued to resonate with me. And I've kind of been ruminating on it, right? That too many adults, a lot of our peers, one day will need forgiveness from their grown children for overparenting, for not allowing enough time or room to struggle, to make mistakes, and for those young people to grow, right? And learn the lesson themselves directly instead of us feeling like we need to tell them the lesson. And it clicked for me because I said, you know what? If we're honest, that's exactly what happens in the classroom as well. Exactly. Where we sometimes are over supporting, we're over explaining. Some people say over teaching, right? We're over rescuing. Sometimes the motivation is love. Maybe the motivation is fear. Maybe the motivation is habit. It's a hard habit to fight. But the reality is, we're doing too much. We're not giving them that space and that time. Y'all, throughout April, we've been unpacking some important things. We started out by talking out. Let me start over. We started out by talking about how students really aren't always stuck. They're unclear, right? They're unclear on the flow of the problem. They're unclear on the expectations. Something got a little murky. Then from there, we moved to how better questions, right? Our questions can reveal thinking, not just answers, making sure that student questions, what they're responding to, is not just all about accuracy, but there's other goals, right? Are we posing questions that challenge and surface misconceptions? Are we posing questions that, again, reveal not just student thinking, but maybe some learning that's not quite finished yet, where they have most of a concept down, but there's a couple things that need adjustments, making sure, again, we're not focusing just on answers. Then, most recently, and we continue to talk about this, but we got very specific again. We reviewed AI not as a shortcut, but as a design partner, right? Because a lot of people use AI just for something really quick, just to kind of pop in and to reflect, but they are not using it as a true thinking partner and leveraging all the things that it can do. So in this moment, today, this evening, y'all, we're talking about what happens when isolated support just really isn't enough, and why systems are what we need, because systems change everything. So one way I want you to think about it is some support, yeah, solves today. We might go in, right, provide some support, it solves today, but systems solve repeatedly, right? It's in the culture, it's part of the framework. Systems solve repeatedly. Y'all, at home, support, and notice the differentiation, might look like reminding every night, checking every assignment, solving panic in that moment. But if we're talking about systems at home, systems can look like visual routines, right? So packing your sports bag, getting ready for bed, what's the flow when you first get home? Systems at home might look like homework launch times. You know exactly what time you need to start your homework, but there's still been some considerations and some flexibility for the different days this might be required, right? How different days have different flows to them. Systems at home include and incorporate self check systems, actually. So we say self check systems, especially thinking about math. We understand that we can add to check subtraction. We understand that we can multiply to check division, right? We plug the answer after we solve that equation, we plug the answer back in to the equation to see if it's correct or not. There's self check system. There's things in place where largely the young people can operate independently of the adults, right? Slash at home, when we're talking about systems versus support, they know what to do next. Okay, so I finished this, I finished that. And what do I do next? What's beyond? What options do I have? All of that will be part of a system versus support. Okay, y'all let me know if this is making sense to you, your understanding. Hey, hey, good evening, good evening. So we're talking about, again, support versus systems. Classroom life support could be, again, you're repeating directions just on repeat, autopilot, right? Maybe you're rescuing too quickly. You see signs of them starting to struggle. You see that thinking face, right? Their face might squinch up a little bit, and you go in and start saving them, start feeding in and scaffolding too quickly instead of letting them spend a little time in that productive struggle. Slash support might be lowering the task immediately. Oh, that one seemed really challenging. Okay, let's try this one. Never mind, we're going to take this away. But if we're talking about systems in the classroom, clear routines that have been practiced. Systems in the classroom, we have anchor models, right? Gradual release, educator life. So I did it first. We're going to do it together where I'm asking you some questions, making sure you're thinking through the process. Then ultimately, you do it on your own. Anchor models. Y'all, reflection prompts, because again, they have to think about what they're doing to make these connections. They have to think about if there was an adjustment they had to make in their learning, in their work. But even with the reflection prompts, y'all, they've been modeled and practiced, and now the students got it, right? They can do it independently. Then again, we talked about the purposeful questioning. So in systems, again, the questions have goals, reveal thinking, maybe some undeveloped, unfinished learning, surface misconceptions. Again, we're not just checking for accuracy. Y'all, when we are talking about supports versus systems, sometimes the reaction, right, the support is more of a reactive thing, and that feels productive. But systems actually are productive. And we just talked about some of the ways that was happening, right? We just distinguished that a bit. So we're talking about, again, support versus systems. Yeah, we're gonna tighten up on our language, some I'll say, because I say we use the word help very loosely when we say we're helping, we're supporting, and sometimes it really misses the mark. And if we miss what people actually need because we use the term help, support so loosely, and we're not necessarily addressing and entering. I call it like the support entry point is what I've been terming it, right? When I'm just working and doing some things. So we enter at the wrong part to support. So we're clarifying that today. So for students, if we're really helping, true help, true support, right, is in the system, we will be building their capacity. So we're growing their emotional capacities, obviously their math capacity, and just everything, their resiliency. We're building their capacity, period, if we're help, true support. So we're increasing ownership, right? They're gradually doing more independently. They know that's the goal. They understand that it's expected. If we're truly making sure that we have systems in place to help, for real, FR, we are strengthening clarity. Again, it's super clear. They don't have any questions about, okay, if I miss this, then what happens? Okay, I get this correct. Then what happens? I finished all my work. Then what happens? Everything is clear. There's clear expectations, clear systems in place. So for educators, the educator side, right? If we're doing those things for the students within the system on the educator side, that means that we're sharpening our design. We're way past, okay, we have a scripted curriculum and we're going with some of that. We're way past, this is my favorite lesson. I've been teaching it for years. I get good marks on my evaluations. We're way past that. We are sharpening the design, especially including um, new questions, including new approaches to the learning and understanding, because we do have new students. The students are different. So what may have made a lot of things click, not just 10 years ago, but even 5 years ago, will be different for this new wave of young people we have. For educators, if we're making sure our system is tight so we can provide true support, that means we're strengthening our decisions. So some of the decisions we need to strengthen are literally the when, right? We just talked about how a lot of things like support can feel reactive, even though it might feel productive. A lot of the decisions that educators need to strengthen have to do with the when they do something. So just as some conversations I was having with educators last week during a seminar. So if we're talking about these are common misconceptions, right? Or these historically, these are the misconceptions they tend to have. So this is how I address it. Then it's the question of, but when did you address it? Did you wait until you taught the lesson and then you started addressing the misconceptions? Did you address the misconceptions earlier on, right at the start of the unit? Slash, have we been putting some sprinkles in along the way, even before we even start and launch the unit, right? Because if these are the things historically, and you know that, you expect that, why will we not adjust earlier so we don't even have those misconceptions? Right? Make your adjustments earlier. So a lot of education and things regarding our young people is they're very reactive. So we want to make sure, again, we're adjusting our time frame, we're adjusting our window so that it's more proactive. So the decisions that we're strengthening often have to do with the when. When do we lean in? When do we intervene sooner? When do we make sure we're providing some of these questions to reveal those things we talked about, those goals we talked about? Y'all, for families, the family side of the systems to support, building routines. And I say this out loud, I talk about this out loud quite a bit because the educator in me, that's natural to me. But just being, out and about with an average, a non educator parent, things like that, that's not innate, that's not automatic for a lot of families, a lot of parents. So just a suggestion of routines, where routines can be, how it can look, that's very insightful, and then the system starts to work. It's not causing all the emotions, feelings, big reactions that used to happen, because now we have a system in place. So with that, we said it reduces friction, right? It reduces friction. If I know what to expect, I know the times, I know how much time I have until I have to do blank. All of that, y'all, cuts down on a lot of the undesirable outcomes, the things that we don't want to happen at home, right, amongst the families. And ultimately, it creates independence, which is the goal. Because again, if for the young people, we're really concerned about, I have to help them, I have to help them. But are we helping them in terms of the system design so that they're empowered so they can do things independently? Or are we constantly having to go in, right? Someone says sharpening the design, tightening up the language, the support entry point, loving these concepts and the way you suggest applying them. Definitely, definitely. Glad you're enjoying it. Good evening, good evening. You all, because again, there has to be literally a system in place, the thoughts, the decisions, right? Behind the system. If we're truly helping, if we're truly supporting, then we've made some decisions and we know what the outcomes that are desired. We know what we want to happen in our young people. And that's how we made our decisions. That's how we um, chose our actions that way. Because the thing is, help isn't always doing more. Let me pause for a minute. Help isn't always doing more. We can do a lot and look busy and literally nothing's happening. There's no progress. But what we need to make sure we're doing, if we're helping is we're designing better. We talked about the decisions and the plan. And then again, we have to give space. We have to give space and time, not just for them to practice, but also for them to reflect on the practice. So a couple things, there's a couple things in that bucket, right? We have the time and space design, and then practice and reflect. So when all of that comes together, y'all, that's the ideal components of the system, whether it's a classroom system or a home system. So again, just working with educators, one thing I emphasize is that mindset isn't just motivation. We're way past growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Mindset impacts and is interpretation, right? It tells us like whatever our outlook is, that's how we're going to apply to every aspect. So if students often interpret struggle as failure, if that's what they learned, oh, I was struggling with this, I don't know this. If we let them, they will. If students are uninterrupted, they'll interpret confusion as inability. Like, what happened? What am I supposed to do again? I don't know, right? If if students are left to their own devices, you all, they will mistake mistakes as their math identity. As I'm not really good with this. I'm always messing up, but this is why systems matter, because systems are going to help to make sure that their descriptions, what their takeaways are, that they're accurate versus just loosely interpreted, right? So when we're talking about, again, these questions, I'm probably going to say it 50 times on here. We're talking about the questions. Most questions, again, just check for answers, but we want to make sure that within our system, we're asking better, again, not necessarily more, better questions to reveal thinking. We've given these examples before, but we're running back. This might be your first time tuning in. I want to make sure you have something you can use tonight, tomorrow, right? Instead of what's the answer, what did you get? Where did this start to make sense? Right? Was there a break? What broke? What broke? When did it not make as much sense anymore? Okay, I see your work. How else could you show this? How else could you solve this? Just different questions to ask, not just different questions, but better questions. Someone said the quotable, help doesn't always mean doing more. Yeah, somewhere along the way, that's what we learned. To like, I think somewhere between scaffolding, what we call scaffolding, right? Like, okay, let's build like a bridge. If this is where they are, this is where they need to be. We're building in the steps to get them there. And what happened is sometimes we just started building the bridge for everybody. And everybody's steps won't be the same anyway. But a lot of times in education slash with kids, period, we give everybody the same steps and act like that makes sense. Like everyone needs the same steps, like they're starting at the same level, like the end goal is the same. It's different things people need to work on. So the steps won't be the same, but we build in steps for everybody, and the steps are the same. Craziness, craziness. When we're talking about the questions, yeah, we're making sure that we're locked in to these questions and the question design, because questions can expose confusion before grades do. By the time we get grades, we really shouldn't be surprised, because too often we're waiting for scores when there were clues all along the way that were available, right? If we asked about them, if we inquired, if we paid attention to them. So, really, by the time grades come out, you should know what's going on. You should know the areas of strength, areas to improve in, all of that. We really should. We should. So we also talked about, I'm just reflecting on some of the conversation last week with educators in that seminar, that wrong answers should be treated like maps. They're telling us where to go. They're telling, I'm gonna say a map slash almost like mall life. You remember how you were staying in front of, what's it called, the directory, right? And it would say you are here. Yes. So really, mistakes, wrong answers are a blend of that. It's a map, okay, where we need to go, then slash the directory from the mall, you are here. because confusion leaves fingerprints, y'all. It leaves some clues and some traces along the way. But a lot of what happens is when we're experiencing mistakes, right? Either ourselves slash a young person experienced a mistake, or we're trying to support them through experiencing a mistake, we have a very emotional reaction. But while we're reacting, we really should make sure that we're studying the mistakes. Because if we're studying the mistakes, we might find, oh, well, this is pretty consistent. This is why they're getting this wrong. It's the same area, and we adjust that area. Or more life skills side, right? Oh, this seems to be an area around, we keep making some mistakes around integrity. Let me lean in and lock in there. So instead of just the emotional reaction to mistakes, y'all, let's study them. Let's really lean in, pay attention, and then we can build stronger systems to truly help, quote unquote, to truly support our young people, whether at home or in the classroom. So this is a lot of where our conversation comes up for using AI. A lot of people underuse AI. We keep talking about this. We don't want it to replace thinking, right? That's very base level. We want AI to help reveal the thinking. How did we get here? If we're here, right, on the mall directory, how? How did we get here? So we don't want to use the Swiss Army knife that is AI just like a hammer. We don't want to limit AI to worksheets, to lesson plans, and just to answer keys. That's basic, y'all. That's surface level. We want AI to spot patterns, generate reflection prompts, build routines, build these systems, right? If you need some help, you need a starting point. I do recommend, yeah, let's talk about it. Let's flesh out some details with one of the AI platforms, right? If you're like, okay, this area, this routine needs some tightening up, it needs some improvement, do that. We can use AI to create better questions, to clarify misconceptions, and again, systems at home or at school. Now, a lot of y'all are thinking, and I hope you are thinking, well, Anika, I do this. I can spot patterns myself. I can generate some reflection prompts, all of that. And I'm not saying that you can't. But one thing I'm saying is we can do it more efficiently, slash, a lot of people have reflected upon, right? Because in all my sessions, we always do some thinking. We do some learning, some talking, some thinking. Some people realize, you know what? When I'm thinking about, again, the entry point, right? The support entry point, or I'm thinking about what reflection prompt, when I'm thinking about the different questions, maybe my thoughts are incorrect. So when we're using and leveraging AI as a thinking partner, again, sometimes it really might be a suggestion, right? I had a really big moment with a teacher last week where he said, you know what, I have been teaching, I want to say it was trig. He'd been teaching trig for about 20 years. And he said, you know, the misconception, yeah, I know what they are. He said, but the reasoning, right? The reasoning, how did we get to the misconception? He said, what I've been thinking it is, it may not be. He said, AI gave me two other possibilities that I had never even considered. He's like, so I'm actually going to try them and see if this addresses the issue sooner instead of me repeating. He said, because I do have a strategy. I do have a way that I try to address the misconception. And he said they get there eventually, but I wonder if it's actually this other reason. And so again, it's a thinking partner. So we're not going to AI just for all of the answers. Give me this, give me that. But if it's a thinking partner, thinking through misconceptions and how we got there, thinking through better systems, better questions, routines, right? So that's all I'm saying about AI, you all, that it can support as a thinking partner while getting some of the things done faster, helping us get to certain points faster, which means we're helping to grow students sooner as well. So when we're shifting from, okay, AI is just an answer machine, it's not. It should be your design partner, your thinking partner, while you're planning out all of your different aspects, whether at home or at school, right? Your systems and routines. We talked about the visual anchor charts. We talked a lot of things, y'all. If you missed it, go back to the beginning because we talked about very specific areas to make sure we're providing authentic support because we're giving them a system versus helping. Okay. When we're doing that, when we're locked into our system, yeah, that means we're saving time and making ourselves and the space better. And who wouldn't want that, right? So, a couple of things. So, holistic fluency, we're constantly listening, engaging with educators. That's why we really enjoy doing the seminars. We're able to pull up and support teachers directly. And really just understanding that a lot of the work, especially because we're talking about AI, a lot of our work is evolving beyond just the resources being static, being that one thing that you download at one time. So, what we're doing, y'all, but while summer season is starting, this is the perfect time to reset, remix, and build before the next full season starts, right? So we're having a summer founding access, a special thing for our craft membership, which is our math educator membership. It's a space where, first of all, it's going to be creative. Y'all know that, right? To remix weak questions, boring questions, into strong learning moments for our young people. We're making sure to sample some fresh strategies. Because again, the strategies that are leveraging and embedding AI is very possible, but we have to reframe that quite a bit. We're making sure in that space to layer systems with intention. Yeah, we're fine tuning instruction. So again, we're able to grow our young people faster slash grow them period, because we're not guessing at what they're thinking, because we're not guessing at why this misconception exists. We have some hardcore evidence, some research, and we're building from there. We're not starting from scratch. And while we're building confidently and through clarity. It's very clear, very specific. So if you want to get in and lock in on the founding access, y'all stay close because I'll be saying some more soon. But if you just need a starting point, like, okay, Anika, I heard what you said about the questions. You kept talking about how questions should have goals. Y'all grab the question upgrade pack. The link is in the bio, but I'm also going to drop the link for you now. And this is a free resource. So while we are evolving and we're having more resources that you actually can, right, continue to tap in and check in consistently, we'll still have some that are static, one-time downloads to help support you as well. But while we're talking about our work at Holistic Fluency, y'all, we really exist to be a design partner. Because again, this is dynamic work that we do. We're a design partner for families, for educators, just systems, right? Y'all can tell systems is our jam, right? This is embedded in our work. So we can make sure that all the spaces are rethinking math learning, right? We support and real support, right? Systemic support, since we understand the difference now. We support parents, educators, communities in building math confidence, building math identity, and building clarity. The goal is that the students don't just perform. Yeah, we very rarely have y'all heard me talk about just like testing and what to do for testing season, stuff like that, right? So we're building systems and building the individuals so that they don't just perform right at end of the year things, but that they persist, because that's a life thing, that they persist and stick with math and stick with developing their math skills, to say the least. Y'all, if any of this shifted your thinking, drop a flame in the chat for me this evening. And a couple of things as we look ahead, right? That we're rounding out our April streams tonight, but May is that much more about execution. So we're talking more in depth about systems. We're talking about the clarity, just the final stretch energy, just that last push, these last few weeks of school for most. I know that a lot of my East Coast friends, right? East Coast educators and some students I support, they're going to be in school till about the end of June because of some of the winter weather and things. But either way, it's the last push, and we're still going to talk about getting ready for this summer transformation, right? This summer transition period. So, y'all, thank you so much for listening this evening. Make sure you download the resource just for some starting points to remix your questions. But again, if you missed it, go back to the beginning for some of the very detailed explanation and examples for home and school, for systems versus support or systems versus helping. because there is a difference. We want to make sure we're super clear in the distinction. Thank y'all so much for joining. See you next week.